Yes, people, how are we? Slacked on the YouTube, haven't I? Very pissed off with myself, but posted one the other day, back this week. So yeah, let's have it. So had a bit of a good. I'm gonna keep that in. Yeah, had some good feedback when I did the previous like training breakdown when I did the push workout. So obviously giving people that obviously much more in depth, I guess, analysis of each individual exercise, why I'm doing it, how I'm doing certain things, little sort of like tweaks to get more out of the movements and stuff like that. So I'm going to run through my current sort of like back workout, what that looks like. So past month or so I've had to switch it up just because I've moved out of my previous apartment, so obviously into a different sort of like gym. So a little bit of a temporary plan, should we say, right now, while I look for a new gym. But either way, I'll give you sort of the breakdown. More than likely, some of these exercises that you guys will be doing right now. So yeah, let's get into it. So the pull ups. So let me just mute the bloody interrupted music. So a key thing here is whether you do this on a assisted pull up machine or you do it on, like I said, just obviously free bar here. I would usually, like I said, if you're starting off, I would always do it on an assisted pull up. The reason why I say it is because people think, oh, you're a pussy if you do an assisted pull up machine and stuff like that. Like, tell them to fucking shut up. Like, right? The reason why I'm saying it is because when you're doing like this, I've obviously done these for a very, very long time now. Whereas like before, like I built up my strength doing like assisted pull-ups because it's like, yes, your biceps are always gonna sort of like sometimes take over, but it's the case that the whole point is you need to minimize that as much as possible, right? So when you're doing a pull up, when you're doing an assisted pull up, it's like just because if you're not as strong as obviously you need to be to do obviously some of these, or for at least I guess 3 sets of however many you're going to be doing for a long period of time, starting off on that. So in order to actually minimize bicep involvement, you want to obviously you're always going to bend your arm while obviously pulling yourself up, but you want to keep that arm as straight as. Let me just obviously make myself a little bit bigger. That's a little bit better. In mind the kitchen in the background. So you want to keep, for example, that arm as straight as possible as you are pulling up, right? So the best way to do that is, for example, using your hand as like a hook, right? So you'll see as my thumb here is over the bar. So when I'm pulling up, I'm essentially tilting backwards. So I'm literally pulling up like this. I'm tilting backwards. I'm pushing my chest up to the ceiling, as you can sort of see here. So like I said, here at the bottom, I'm relaxed. My head is slightly forward. And then as I'm pulling up, see my back is arched, my shoulders are back, and my chest is trying to push up to the ceiling, right? So it allows me to contract my lats a lot more, but it also allows me to slightly keep my arm a little bit straighter than if I'm like this, okay? Because the more, like I said, elbow flexion, the more bicep involvement, okay? So obviously we want to minimize that as much as possible, and obviously doing it on assisted pull-ups when you haven't got that strength early doors is going to make obviously that so much easier, okay? So that's obviously first exercise. Obviously, I'd always sort of start with that anyway, because it almost like gets your lats firing. So it's almost like a bit of a assisted to almost like when I'm go to do my next lat exercise or obviously my next rowing, my lats are already firing. I can just feel, for example, the upward movement so much more essentially. So going into the next movement will be wherever it is a one arm lat pull down. So some people do this on a bench. I like to do it on my knee. Just again requires a little more core stability. So again, I just want to get more out of the movement. So again, some people agree with it, some people won't. That's absolutely fine. I'm not trying to please anybody. So key thing on this, which I see, like I've got this in a lot of clients' plans, is they yank it down as quickly as possible. And it's like, right, yeah, you get in that movement, you get in that weight from point A to point B, but you really need to focus on how you're actually getting that obviously weight from point A to point B, right? We need to get it done in the most efficient way possible. So essentially here, again, same with what I said on the pull-ups, you want to try and keep your arm as straight as possible as you are pulling, using that hand as a hook, and essentially you want to be driving your elbow down to the pocket of your hips or down to essentially the pocket of your shorts, right? And essentially when you're doing it, you want to lean into it as you are doing it, okay? So you see here, I'm slightly, nothing heavy, but I'm slightly leaning over to the left-hand side, okay? It just allows me personally to feel my back and obviously my lat that much more, okay? So you'll see it's nice and slow and controlled on the way up, but also on the way down as well. Again, maximizing both the concentric and obviously the eccentric as well, okay? So that's obviously my second exercise. This next exercise here is one I wouldn't usually program, but again, like I've put this in because it's a good gym that I've got, apartment gym, but still some of the equipment is quite limited. So I've put in a pen lay row here. So I wouldn't usually program this, to be honest, just because sometimes, again, especially with somebody who's not been to the gym that much or is not an experienced like lifter, the risk of injury is quite high just because of, like I said, I guess the vulnerability of the movement, if you want to sort of like call it that, just because your body is essentially like at a right angle, really. And obviously when your body's at a right angle and you're just pulling straight up from that point, sometimes it can put a little bit of load on that lower back. Okay, which obviously, again, when you're doing a movement, you want to, like, again, minimize that as much as possible. Okay, so I'll run you through it regardless. So if you go quite light and you add like maybe a 1 second pause on it, it's a really good movement. I can feel it a lot after, like my back is fucking like so pumped after I've done it. But essentially what you'll do here, similar to, I guess, a bent over row, which obviously you'll see obviously in this workout as well. But again, it's more done from like a dead stop. It's quite an explosive movement. So essentially when you're pulling up, you're pulling up quite explosively. Back is obviously straight, and then you're releasing it back down to the starting point, and you're starting from the floor every single time. You'll see as well, when I'm doing it, I'll almost like reset. So I'll tilt my arse down a little bit. You'll see it more here on this last couple. When it does it. So like you see just that bit there, essentially super important. Like, where is it? That bit there. Just a slight little adjustment there just to make sure I'm protecting my lower back. Slightly dipping the hips just to make sure that, yes, my back's straight, but it's not obviously arching as I'm pulling. And then when I pull, essentially it's pretty much straight. Okay, so there's a slight reset as I'm pulling the weight every single time. Okay, you just don't want to be repping through them, because then your form gets sloppy, your shoulders start rounding, your back starts rounding, and then, like I said, that risk of injury increases. Okay, so third exercise here. Is it third? No, fourth exercise. Wait, is it third, fourth? Pull-ups, pen lay row. Fourth exercise. So this one is the rear delts. So rear delt cable fly. I personally like to do mine like single arm, just because I feel like I feel it a lot more. Again, you can do two, and again, like the majority of the time, if I'm putting this in for clients, I'll put two in there, just because, which I'll show you in a second as well, just because, like I said, it saves a lot of time. Like a lot of my clients, they're very busy, they haven't got time to do stuff like this, so I'll put like both in there. Again, like you still feel that very well, don't get me wrong, but sometimes I've always struggled sometimes feeling my rear delt, instead of, like, obviously sometimes my trap will take over. So yeah, just obviously a quick tip. For me personally, you can obviously apply that whether you do or whether you don't. Completely down to you. So yeah, showing you from the other side as well. So slight bend in that elbow, not locking out that elbow at the top either. I see a lot of people, for example, when they come back, they fully extend that elbow at the back. You're working a lot of tricep there. Okay, we want to make sure that your elbow is pretty much fixed. So it may slightly bend a little bit more as you bring your arm across your chest, but then when you swing it back, it's like, right, when I'm swinging it back, there's still that pretty much bend, okay? So there's that straight, that's where it needs to be, essentially. So from this angle, it may look like it's slightly straight, but like there's still, as you can sort of see here, there's still a slight bend in that, okay? Which is super important when you are trying to obviously activate that rear delt, and obviously minimize any sort of like tricep involvement, really. I add a sort of like 1 second pause at the top. Obviously here is obviously doing it both at the same time. So again, works just as well, but again, obviously I just feel it a little bit more when I do it one arm, essentially. So this one, again, is obviously the bent over row. I personally, obviously, I'm doing it on the Smith machine just because, like, again, it's quite limited and stuff. Hopefully I'm tracking my lifts there, not obviously on WhatsApp or anything, but yeah, I'll do mine bent over rows on the Smith machine because I just feel it a lot more. I feel like, for example, when I do it on a barbell, it's very difficult for me personally anyway to take up, for my biceps not to take over. Like biceps for me, I would say, is probably one of my strongest body parts. I wish it was like my legs, but it's not. So yeah, I mean, some people think that's a good thing, but like sometimes it can be quite annoying because like my biceps will always take over when it comes to my back development. Okay, so doing it like this just allows me to go a little bit slower and just more a controlled movement, and again, just focus on my back a little bit more. So as you'll sort of see here, obviously a lot different to, I guess, the pen lay row. Like pretty much, yes, the back is straight, but like I said, we're a bit more upright now than obviously we were with the with the pendlay row. Okay, a little bit of a quicker movement as well, and obviously you're not starting from the floor as well. So key one with this is obviously try and keep, obviously your elbows will flare slightly, but try and keep them close to your body as possible. Again, I'm doing it quite close. Sometimes you can do it a little bit wider to target, obviously, the upper and obviously outer back. But again, I like to do mine a little bit closer because, again, I can just sort of like feel it a lot more. So again, nice and slow on the way down. A little bit of a pause at the top. And then obviously back down to the starting point again. A nice stretch on that lat. Some people do like half reps, which is, I don't know why you're doing that. Like, it's not a waste of time, but again, you're cutting yourself short from progress that you could obviously be getting. So again, nice and low all the way down. Tilt them hips slightly, and then obviously take it from there. Obviously, first bicep exercise. So again, a key thing with this that I see some of my clients and then just general, obviously, people get wrong sometimes is they will like literally flare their elbows so much they'll be like forwards and backwards, that they'll go too heavy, so the cables will almost be pulling them back when they're trying to curl it, so going far too heavy. With this, you'll see how slow I'm going. So with here, like, you'll see my elbow is pretty much pinned to the side. It'll only come up as I raise my wrist when I'm at the top part of the movement here. And you'll really see that, again, some people's elbows, when they do it, like, they'll go really far back here. And it's like, right, you need to make sure that when you're at this point, so you'll see there, look, my elbows are still very much pinned to my side, yet that's a full extension. Okay, whereas when people are doing a full extension here, their elbow comes all the way back here. It's like, right, well, you're almost making it easier on yourself. Whereas with me here, it's a fixed position. My arm is fully lengthened. Obviously, there's a lot of tension on my arm here, which is obviously what you want. And then essentially you are curling it straight back up. Okay, nice and slow on the way down, and then nice and slow on the way up. I have a different way of like training. So some people will be like, right, yes, slow on the way down. Oh, yes, slow on the way down. But then essentially you want it like fast and explosive on the way up. I have a different way of doing it. I would rather do nice and slow on the way down, but then nice and slow on the way up as well. Like, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to do that. You want to get as much bang for your buck from every single session. Okay, you want to get as much bang for your buck in terms of every single exercise. Okay, that's super important to remember. So like I said, if we're just rushing through that, obviously squeeze at the top. It's like, right, you're getting obviously, yeah, it's working, but I want to get and squeeze as much juice out of this exercise as humanly possible. Okay, so if I'm putting my muscle under more tension for a prolonged period of time, I'm obviously going to get more out of the movement, right? That's literally plain and simple. So yeah, that's that. So again, I put nice obviously curl in there, and then I'll add some hammers in there for a bit more thickness in terms of the arm, which I'll do on an incline bench, which you'll see on this next clip. Looks like I've recorded it with a fucking potato. I don't know why it looks like that. Camera cost me a few bob, so it's a bit annoying that. But yeah, so obviously with this, obviously slight incline. So obviously pad is like literally like that. Bench is essentially like that. So this is obviously where my head's going to be. Obviously, mind the hand diagram. So again, nice and slow on the way down, fully locking out the bottom. Again, some people only come to like here and then just literally curl like that. I want to see all the way down, get that full extension, lock out that obviously elbow, tense that tricep at the bottom, and then cut all the way back up to the top part of the movement as well. What I like to do as well, and again, this might just be personal preference, it just allows me to sort of like feel the movement a little bit more, is I'll always have, and I'll say this to clients anyway, I'll always have my elbow slightly in front of my body. So then when I'm, for example, curling it up and then I'm curling back down, even though I'm using dumbbells, because obviously dumbbells will always have a drop-off point, the way I, again, minimize that drop-off is, yes, I'm locking out my elbows, but my elbow is still slightly raised and it's slightly in front of my body, which means even though when I'm at the bottom part of the movement, there is still constant tension on it, okay? That's super important to remember. Like, again, like, it's personal preference. I would personally do it because, again, my big philosophy is getting more bang for your buck. My clients will know it's my favorite saying. They probably get bored of me saying it, but again, it really works. So it's like, right, when you get to the bottom part of the movement, literally, I'm dying at this point, like here, when, for example, your elbow is like all the way back, like there's no, like, yes, you're holding a dumbbell at the bottom part of the movement, but there's no real tension. Okay, whereas obviously when there's no real tension here at the bottom part of the movement, whereas obviously if it's here, you're still fighting against, obviously, well, fighting against fucking gravity, essentially, yeah, and then obviously you're coming all the way to the bottom, and then you're almost fighting against, obviously, that gravity to obviously bring that dumbbell up, essentially. So yeah, hopefully you guys, I think, yeah, this is the last exercise. So yeah, hopefully you guys obviously enjoyed that whether you enjoyed it or you got obviously a lot out of it. Hopefully, like I said, you're more than likely doing maybe one or two exercises. Oh, one or two exercises obviously within this workout you're probably already doing, and even if you're not, maybe obviously now you obviously see them performed obviously like this. I've given you obviously a couple of tips for each and every one. You might obviously want to implement them, but yeah, I just really think, and you just need to stress the fact that these little minor tweaks that like me or somebody else who obviously, well, maybe a coach that knows what they're saying, not many of them do, but like if you obviously have one that knows what they're talking about, you might not think that these little minor tweaks make a difference, but they really, really do. Like elbow positioning, like knee positioning when you're doing squats, like the way you obviously press like a squat, like press your heels through the floor, all these different things. They may sound a little bit tedious, they may sound like a lot, like they don't really matter, but it's really, really obviously beneficial. Okay, so obviously take on board obviously what I've said, take on board obviously if you've got another coach, take on board what they say in terms of that as well. Even though it may seem small, super, super effective. Okay, and obviously like I said, you implement this stuff, you obviously push yourself as much as humanly possible in these sessions. Again, just remember your body is very stubborn. It needs to obviously a lot of obviously tension. It needs a lot of obviously force. It needs a lot of like demand and stress on your body to actually grow. So it's like, right, making sure that when you leave that gym every single time you think, right, I couldn't physically do another session like that. That was absolutely awful. That's essentially the feeling that you need. Okay, so yeah, I'll leave it at that. Any questions with anything, like I said, let me know. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz if you've obviously enjoyed it. If not, well, don't dislike it, but yeah, just keep it to yourselves. I'll speak to you soon.